The NBA season has finally reached that point where the noise settles, the dust clears, and the real picture begins to form. Teams that started the year full of hope are now staring down harsh realities, while others have risen from doubt and exceeded every expectation. This is the moment when everything becomes clearer. Patterns emerge, weaknesses expose themselves, and strengths shine through. The hierarchy of the league starts to take shape, revealing who's on top, who's slipping, and who's simply trying to survive. And as the landscape unfolds, a dramatic story plays out across a league filled with chaos, resurgence, heartbreak, and pure dominance. At the very bottom lies what can only be described as the chaos zone, a place where nothing makes sense and everything feels unpredictable. The Pelicans, Grizzlies, Kings, and Mavericks all find themselves trapped here for the same reason. Their seasons have spiraled so far out of control that it almost feels surreal. Sacramento's roster construction has crumbled in real time, exposing the structural issues that were visible from the moment the season tipped off. New Orleans continues to confuse the league. They have talent, they have potential, yet somehow they keep falling apart due to constant injuries and shockingly inconsistent play. Then there's Memphis and Dallas, two teams dealing with drama that has seeped so deeply into their cultures that it's now poisoning the product on the floor. Dallas was already teetering after the disastrous trade of Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis, a move that never made sense and now looks even worse as Anthony Davis sits out nearly half the season already. The firing of GM Nico Harrison only sealed a chapter on an era defined by confusion and self-inflicted wounds. Memphis, meanwhile, is drowning in tension centered around Ja Morant, who no longer looks like the explosive, electrifying player that once lifted the franchise. His shots aren't falling, his confidence is shaken, and his growing frustration with the coaching staff is splitting the locker room apart. The chemistry is gone, the energy is off, and unless something drastic happens soon, the Grizzlies may be forced to consider an unthinkable move before the trade deadline. Then, rising from the chaos yet still a long way from contention, two teams find themselves in a temporary holding pattern. The Celtics and Pacers, both hit with devastating injuries, have been thrown into an involuntary reset year. They aren't disasters, but they aren't threatening anyone either. With Indiana sitting at 1-10 and Boston at 5-7, their seasons are defined by survival rather than success. Yet, there's a quiet confidence surrounding both franchises. Jason Tatum and Tyrese Halliburton are expected to return next season, and when they do, the trajectory of both teams will skyrocket. In their stars' absence, players like Jaylen Brown have been forced to elevate their games, revealing bright spots that will only strengthen these teams next year. The foundation is there. The recovery time is underway. And when 2026 and 2027 arrive, both Boston and Indiana could easily storm right back into elite company. Further up the ladder sit the Rebuilders, a trio of teams that have embraced the tank with open arms. The Nets, Wizards, and Jazz aren't hiding their intentions. They want draft picks, they want youth, and they want a chance to grab one of the potential superstars entering the league next season. Everything they do right now is about the future, and while their present looks bleak, the long-term outlook could shift rapidly if they hit on a franchise-altering pick. In the middle of the pack, the season has taken a very different form. The Raptors, Hornets, Blazers, and Suns all sit in the league's middle class, floating above disaster yet far from greatness. A near .500 finish appears likely for all four teams. The Hornets and Blazers, in particular, have shown surprising flashes. Portland could become a serious threat again if Damian Lillard returns healthy and regains even a fraction of his old explosiveness. The Hornets have found unexpected gems in their rookie class, with three young players showing real promise and giving the franchise hope for a future built around internal growth. Phoenix, on the other hand, came into the season with no expectations, and maybe that's been their biggest blessing. The pressure is gone, the spotlight is dimmer, and they've quietly been playing surprisingly competitive basketball despite setbacks. But not everyone in the league is meeting expectations. In fact, some teams have fallen dramatically short. The Hawks, Magic, and Clippers headline the not as good as advertised tier, a group of franchises that entered the season with excitement and high hopes, only to watch those expectations crumble. Orlando's offense has become a puzzle that nobody seems able to solve, with players tripping over one another's roles. The Clippers have turned into a defensive liability as injuries pile up yet again. And while Atlanta still has potential, losing Trae Young has left the team looking lost more often than not, with their offensive identity slipping further away each game. But then, in one of the season's biggest twists, a huge group of teams has proved the critics wrong. The Bucks, Heat, Spurs, Lakers, Bulls, 76ers, and Pistons have all exceeded expectations and established themselves as legitimate threats. Giannis has launched Milwaukee into a new era of dominance, while Miami continues to embody resilience and discipline. San Antonio has shocked the league with an elite defense led by the growth of Victor Wembanyama. The Lakers, even without LeBron, have stayed afloat thanks to Luka's monstrous performances. Chicago's surprise turnaround has centered around Josh Giddey's breakout, and Philly has found new life thanks to their dynamic young core. But perhaps the most shocking rise has come from the Detroit Pistons. A team that once looked hopeless now sits at the top of the Eastern Conference behind Cade Cunningham's MVP-level play, and a roster filled with hungry, growing talent. As we approach the top of the tier list, the air becomes thinner, the competition fiercer. The Cavaliers, Knicks, Timberwolves, and Warriors still stand tall as legitimate postseason threats. Their rough patches haven't defined them. Instead, they've grown stronger from adversity. Steph Curry's return stabilized Golden State. Cleveland regained balance with Garland back on the floor. The Knicks have quietly built one of the most complete rosters in the league. And Minnesota, fresh off back-to-back deep playoff runs, continues to display the size, defense, and star power that make them a nightmare matchup for anyone. Finally, at the very top, separated from the rest by sheer dominance and overwhelming consistency, stand the Thunder, Rockets, and Nuggets. These teams have set the standard for excellence this season. Oklahoma City is tearing through the league with the best defense, and offense that refuses to slow down. Houston has become one of the most physical, aggressive, and intimidating teams in the league. And Denver, led by Nikola Jokic's unstoppable brilliance, remains the benchmark for what a true championship contender looks like. Across the NBA, every team has a story, every franchise has a direction, and every night adds another chapter to an unfolding drama. And as the season continues, those stories will shift, twist, and evolve. But for now, this is a landscape. This is the truth of where every team stands. If you enjoyed this breakdown, share your thoughts. Which team surprised you the most this season? Who do you think will rise or fall as the year continues? Drop your predictions in the comments. Hit that like button if you're enjoying the analysis, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next deep dive.